Did you know that the air in Egypt's Valley of the Kings can feel so heavy, so ancient, that it's like breathing in powdered time itself? It's a place where the sun doesn't just tan you, it tries to cook you, medium rare with a side of existential dread. It's a landscape of baked limestone and silent, watchful cliffs that have guarded the secrets of the dead for millennia. Before you get too comfortable, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel to encourage me to make more content like this. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights and let's begin tonight's journey. You are standing in that valley, but the year is 1922. The heat is not a gentle warmth, it is a physical weight pressing down on you. Dust, fine as flour, coats your tongue and clings to the sweat on your skin. Before you is a man, Howard Carter. He isn't a towering figure of legend, not yet. He is a man of medium height, weathered by years of this unforgiving sun, his face a map of determination etched with fine lines of frustration. You can see the obsession in his eyes as he scans the valley floor, a landscape he knows more intimately than any living soul. For 5 seasons, he has turned this sacred ground upside down, and for 5 seasons, he has found almost nothing. The world of archaeology, a small and gossipy community, has written him off. They have written this valley off. The great American excavator, Theodore Davis, had worked here for years before Carter and declared with absolute certainty that the valley's treasures were exhausted. He'd found a small pit containing items bearing the name of a minor pharaoh, Tutankhamun, and dismissed them as all that was left of a plundered, insignificant burial. But Carter holds on to those small clues like a prayer. He believes Davis was wrong. He believes a king is still sleeping here, undisturbed. You watch him gesture to his workers, his voice sharp and precise, demanding they clear a section of rubble near the base of the tomb of Ramesses VI. It is a desperate move, a last roll of the dice in a game he has been losing for years. This valley is the most famous cemetery on Earth, the final resting place for titans of history like Seti I and Ramesses the Great. Their tombs were monumental, elaborate palaces for the dead, but they were all found open, pillaged by ancient hands. Carter's quest is for something different. He hunts for the ghost of a boy king, a pharaoh so obscure he was barely a footnote in the grand saga of Egypt. To everyone else, this is a fool's errand. The money is running out, patience has worn thin, and the heat is relentless. Historians still debate whether Carter's unshakable conviction was a stroke of archaeological genius or the magnificent obsession of a man who simply refused to be wrong. As you watch him, you feel the crushing weight of his isolation. He is a man alone with his dream, surrounded by a chorus of doubters and the ghosts of forgotten kings. He has a small companion back at his camp, a little yellow canary, whose song is the only delicate thing in this landscape of grit and rock. It is a small, fragile symbol of hope in a place that seems determined to break him. The sun begins to dip below the Theban cliffs, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, but Carter barely notices. His gaze is fixed on the ground, on the dirt and rock, searching for a single sign that his life's work has not been in vain. The money for all this, for every shovel, every water jug, and every worker's meager wage, comes from a world away. You must now picture a man in a place utterly alien to this sun-scorched valley. Imagine the cool, shaded halls of an English manor, the scent of polished wood and old money thick in the air. This is the world of George Herbert, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon. He is Carter's patron, the venture capitalist behind this grand, dusty enterprise. Lord Carnarvon is not an archaeologist. He is a gentleman of immense wealth, a man who lives for the thrill of the gamble. He races horses, he collects art, and he was one of the first and most reckless motorists in England. In fact, it was a near-fatal car crash in 1901 that left him with fragile health and first brought him to Egypt, seeking the warm, dry air as a tonic for his damaged lungs. You can see him, a man accustomed to luxury, finding himself bored in the land of the Pharaohs. For a man like Carnarvon, boredom is a fate worse than death. So, he took up a hobby, as the wealthy often do. That hobby was Egyptology. He wasn't equipped to lead an excavation himself, so he sought out the best man he could find, a recommendation that led him to the stubborn, knowledgeable, and notoriously difficult Howard Carter. Theirs was a partnership born of mutual need. Carter had the expertise, but no money, and Carnarvon had more money than he knew what to do with, and a desperate need for a captivating project. For years, the partnership worked. Carnarvon would visit Egypt each winter, enjoying the climate and the thrill of the hunt, while Carter did the grueling work on the ground. But the thrill was fading. Year after year, the reports from Carter were the same. Nothing. Minor finds, scraps of pottery, the tantalizing but ultimately empty tombs of lesser nobles. Carnarvon, the gambler, was growing tired of a bet that never paid off. You can feel the tension in the correspondence between them, the polite but firm pressure from the man writing the checks. So, before this 1922 season began, there was a meeting back in England at Carnarvon's stately home. It was an ultimatum, delivered with aristocratic grace but iron finality. This would be the last season. One final year of funding. If Carter found nothing by the end of it, the project was over. The tap would be turned off. This is the psychological weight that presses on Carter even more heavily than the Egyptian sun. It's not just about proving the naysayers wrong anymore. It's about saving his life's work from a premature burial. Historians debate the exact nature of their partnership, whether Carnarvon was a patient patron, genuinely invested in history, or simply a demanding investor, growing tired of the lack of returns. Whatever the truth, the effect was the same. Carter was digging against the clock. Every swing of a pickaxe, every basket of rubble hauled away, was a tick of that clock. Carnarvon's decision was not cruel. From his perspective, it was simply business. But for Carter, it was a death sentence for his singular, all-consuming dream. The fate of the biggest archaeological discovery in history now rests not just on finding a tomb, but on finding it before one rich man's patience finally and completely runs out. The days bleed into one another, each one a copy of the last, distinguished only by the slow crawl of the sun across a bleached white sky. You feel the monotony in your bones. The rhythm of the work is hypnotic and maddening. The sharp crack of a pickaxe striking limestone, the soft scrape of shovels against sand, the rhythmic chant of the workers as they haul baskets of rubble up the steep inclines. This is not the glamorous adventure you see in films. There are no sudden breakthroughs, no dramatic map readings by torchlight. There is only the dust, the sweat, and the gnawing persistent taste of failure. You watch the local workmen, their dark skin glistening under the oppressive heat, their movements economical and practiced from a lifetime of this labor. They are patient, more patient than Carter, perhaps because they expect less. Each morning begins with a flicker of hope, a tiny ember that glows in Carter's eyes as he surveys the day's work. He directs the excavation with a meticulous, almost surgical precision, leaving no patch of ground unexamined. But by midday, as the sun reaches its zenith and the heat becomes a tangible, suffocating blanket, that ember begins to fade. The water in your canteen is warm and tastes of metal. The food is gritty with the ever-present dust. You see the hope drain from the faces of the crew, replaced by a weary resignation. They have seen this before. They have worked for other foreign gentlemen who came with big dreams and left with empty hands. Every now and then, there is a shout. A foreman calls for Carter, and for a heart-stopping moment, the entire site freezes. Everyone holds their breath. You rush over, your heart pounding with a shared, desperate hope. But it is always a false alarm. A fragment of a worker's water jar from the 20th dynasty. A broken piece of a funerary offering from a long-looted tomb nearby. These small discoveries are almost crueler than finding nothing at all. They are little whispers of the greatness that once filled this valley, reminders of what has already been lost, plundered centuries, even millennia, ago. It's an archaeological version of finding a single, dropped French fry in the parking lot of a restaurant that closed down years ago. A sad hint of a feast you missed. You feel Carter's frustration as a palpable force. He is a brilliant man, a skilled artist, and an expert Egyptologist, reduced to sifting through the trash of ancient construction workers. The pressure from Lord Carnarvon's ultimatum is a constant, unspoken presence. Every fruitless day is a day closer to the end. The academic world is already moving on, their attention shifting to other sites, other potential discoveries. Carter is becoming a relic himself, a man clinging to an outdated theory about a depleted valley. Historians still debate the psychological toll these years of failure took on him, speculating that his famously irritable and difficult personality was forged in this crucible of heat and disappointment. For now, you see only a man stretched to his breaking point. The sun sets once more, and the cool of the evening brings little relief. It only brings the silence, a profound and heavy silence, where the ghosts of his doubts can whisper more loudly in his ear. The dream is dying, one shovelful of dust at a time. The end of the season is now just days away. A palpable sense of finality hangs in the air, heavier than the dust. You see the workers beginning the slow process of packing up the equipment. There is no sadness in their movements, just a quiet acceptance. Another season, another failure. This is the rhythm of their lives. But Carter is not ready to surrender. Not yet. He stands alone, his gaze sweeping across the small triangular patch of land at the base of the massive tomb of Ramesses VI. It is the only place left. Every other square inch of the valley floor that he deemed worthy of interest has been turned over, sifted, and declared barren. This particular spot has remained untouched for a very specific reason. For over 3,000 years, it has been buried. First, by the tons of limestone chippings, discarded by the men who carved out Ramesses' tomb. Then, on top of that rubble, the very same workers built their simple stone and mud brick huts. It was their temporary village, a worksite camp. For an archaeologist, digging here seems nonsensical. It's like trying to find a lost wallet by digging up the foundation of a skyscraper that was built on top of it. The ground had been disturbed, built upon, and sealed by a history that was, to Carter, relatively modern and uninteresting. He was hunting for the 18th dynasty, and this was the territory of the 20th. You can almost see the mental map inside Carter's head, a detailed chart of the valley filled with trenches and pits and crossed-out sections. This one small area remains stubbornly blank. His decision to dig here is not born of a brilliant last-minute deduction. It is the last move in a game of elimination. It is an act of pure, undiluted desperation. He has looked everywhere else. He has exhausted every theory and followed every clue to a dead end. Now, all that is left is the impossible, the illogical, the place no one else would bother to look. He gives the order. The foremen look at him, a flicker of surprise in their eyes, but they obey. The work begins. It is slow, arduous, and feels profoundly anticlimactic. The crew must first dismantle the foundations of the ancient workers' huts. It's archaeology in reverse. They carefully document and remove these small pieces of history, uncovering fascinating little glimpses into the lives of the common men who built the pharaohs' grand tombs. They find shards of their pottery, the remnants of their meals, and even small, flat stones where they scratched game boards to pass the time between shifts. It's a beautifully human discovery, but it is not the one Carter is looking for. Historians still debate whether Carter truly had a hunch about this specific spot based on some forgotten clue, or if he was simply, and luckily, clearing the very last unscoured patch of the valley floor. To his weary workers, it must have seemed like a final, pointless exercise, a way for their obsessive employer to admit defeat as slowly as humanly possible. The sun beats down, the baskets of rubble are hauled away, revealing nothing but more rubble beneath. The clock is ticking, Carnarvon's deadline looms, and Carter has staked his entire career on the ground beneath a forgotten shanty town. It is the 4th of November, 1922. The morning begins like any other. The air is cool for a change, a brief respite before the sun climbs high enough to begin its daily assault. You are there as the workers arrive, their movements slow and deliberate, the low hum of resignation still hanging over the site. Carter himself is not yet present. He is making his way from his house. The work of clearing the ancient hut foundations continues, a task that feels more like an archaeological post-mortem than a living excavation. There is no excitement, no sense of imminent discovery. The season is all but over. The dream has faded to a pale, dusty memory. But then, something happens. It is a tiny, insignificant event that goes unnoticed by almost everyone. A young boy, one of the team's water carriers, is setting down his jars. The story that will be told for a century is that this boy, named Hussein Abdel Rasoul, was idly tracing patterns in the sand with a stick, or perhaps trying to steady his water pot in the soft ground when he felt it. A dull, solid thud. A sound that did not belong. This was not the soft give of sand or the grating crunch of loose rubble. This was the sound of something solid, something flat and unyielding, buried just beneath the surface. You watch him, his curiosity piqued. He scrapes at the spot with his hands, his small fingers digging into the loose dirt. The other workers are too busy with their own tasks to pay him any mind. He is just a boy, after all. But as he clears more sand, a sharp, straight edge begins to appear. It is not a natural rock. It is cut, shaped by human hands. It is the top of a step. He scrambles to his feet, his eyes wide, and runs to find the foreman. The foreman, a seasoned and skeptical man named Ahmed Guriga, likely sighs, expecting another false alarm. But he follows the boy, and when he sees the stone, his professional apathy vanishes, replaced by a jolt of pure electricity. A runner is dispatched immediately to fetch Carter. You can feel the shift in the air, the change from monotonous labor to a sharp, breathless anticipation. When Carter arrives, he takes in the scene, his expression unreadable at first. He has been disappointed too many times to let hope run wild. He walks to the spot, kneels down, and touches the stone with his own hands, as if to confirm it is real. He runs his fingers along the straight, cut edge. It is a step cut into the bedrock of the valley, a step leading down. Historians still debate the romantic tale of the water boy, with some suggesting it was a story crafted by Carter for the press, and that his experienced workmen were the ones who truly made the find. But whatever the truth, the result is the same. After years of searching, after staring failure in the face, here it is, the first glimmer, an impossible, miraculous hint that he was right all along. He gives the order, his voice tight with controlled emotion. Clear it. The men work with a new energy now, a frantic, focused purpose. Their shovels and brushes revealing not just one step, but another, and then another. A staircase descending into the silent, waiting darkness. The energy on the site has transformed. The weary, monotonous rhythm of failure has been shattered, replaced by a staccato beat of frantic, hopeful activity. You are swept up in it, the electricity passing from man to man. Carter is at the center of this storm, a conductor of controlled chaos. He directs the workmen with sharp, precise commands, his voice no longer edged with desperation, but ringing with the authority of a man on the cusp of vindication. The work is no longer about clearing rubble, it is about revelation. You watch as the team works its way down, following the promise of that first step. Another step emerges from the debris, then another. Each one is a victory, a confirmation that this is not a false start or a dead end. This is a formal, deliberate construction. The sun, once an oppressive enemy, now seems to cast a spotlight on their work. Its brilliant light a stark contrast to the growing darkness of the descent. As they dig deeper, the air grows cooler. losing its scorching edge. The sounds of the world above, the distant shouts and the hum of the valley, begin to fade. It is as if you are stepping out of time, descending a path that has not felt a human footstep for 3,000 years. There are 12 steps in total, then a small landing, and then the staircase continues, turning slightly. Finally, after 16 steps have been cleared, the worker's tools hit something flat and vertical. A wall, not a wall of bedrock, but a wall of human construction. It is a surface of rough plaster, a pale, ghostly grey in the subterranean gloom. It is a barrier, a full stop, the end of the line. The men fall silent, their breathing loud in the confined space. They turn to Carter, their faces a mixture of awe and apprehension. This is it, the entrance. Carter kneels, his movements slow and reverent. He takes a soft brush and begins to gently whisk away the last of the accumulated dust and chippings from the lower portion of the doorway. And as he clears the surface, something truly extraordinary is revealed. Impressions in the plaster. Seals, faint but unmistakable. They are the official stamps of the ancient necropolis administration. You can make out the iconic image of the god Anubis in his form as a jackal, crouching protectively over a row of 9 bound captives who represent the enemies of Egypt. This is the official seal of the royal necropolis. It is a sign of immense significance, a symbol of pharaonic authority. The presence of these seals suggests that whatever lies behind this door was closed, locked, and placed under the protection of the gods and the state. A thrill, cold and sharp, runs through you. This is the moment Carter has dreamed of for 2 decades. The discovery of an entrance is one thing, but an entrance that still bears its original seals is something else entirely. It is a whisper from the past, a promise that what lies within might have escaped the ravages of time and the greed of ancient tomb robbers. Carter stands up, his face a mask of intense, triumphant calm. He has found it. There is no doubt now. A king's tomb lies just a few feet away from him. Historians still debate the sheer force of will it took for Carter to halt the excavation at this precise moment, to honor his commitment to his patron. The temptation to break through must have been almost unbearable. Instead, he gives the order to refill the staircase, to bury his discovery once more, protecting it from modern thieves, while he sends the most famous telegram in the history of archaeology. At last have made wonderful discovery in valley, a magnificent tomb with seals intact, recovered same for your arrival. Congratulations. The silence returns as the first basket of sand is poured back down the steps, concealing the secret once more. The wait is an agony, a slow-burning fever of anticipation. 3 long weeks pass between Carter sending his telegram and the arrival of his patron. For you, standing in the valley, it feels like a lifetime. The secret of the staircase lies buried again beneath the sand, guarded day and night, but the news has begun to leak out. A quiet hum of excitement is spreading through the hotels of Luxor, a rumor of a big discovery. Finally, the day comes. Lord Carnarvon arrives, his daughter, the bright and inquisitive Lady Evelyn Herbert, at his side. You can see the barely contained excitement on their faces, a stark contrast to Carter's grimly controlled expression. For him, this is the moment of ultimate validation or ultimate humiliation. The staircase is painstakingly once again, the 16 steps descend into the earth. Once again, the plastered doorway with its sacred, unbroken seals is revealed to the light. This time, the key players are all assembled at the bottom of the narrow cutting. The air is thick with unspoken questions. What lies beyond? Is it intact? Or is this just the prelude to another bitter disappointment? Carter, Carnarvon, and Lady Evelyn stand before the 3,000-year-old barrier. You were there with them, a silent observer in the small, crowded space, lit by the reflected glare of the sun from above. Carter takes a small, sharp tool. He is about to commit an act that is both a scientific necessity and a profound intrusion. He is breaking a lock set in place by priests who have been dust for millennia. You can hear the soft, scraping sound as he begins to chip away at the plaster near the top left corner of the doorway. The sound is unnervingly loud in the tense silence. Dust, ancient and fine, falls in a gentle shower, sparkling in the light. Is this a moment of discovery or of desecration? You feel the ethical weight of the act. You are witnessing the violation of a sacred space, a king's eternal home, in the name of knowledge. It is the central paradox of archaeology. As Carter works, creating a small aperture, a puff of air escapes from within. It is warm, and it carries a faint, strange scent. Some would later romantically describe it as the smell of perfume and incense. Carter himself simply noted it was not foul. With a hole large enough, he takes a candle to test for foul gases. The flame flickers for a moment in the escaping draft, but holds steady, burning clearly. The air inside is safe to breathe. He widens the hole, his movements deliberate and careful. Everyone leans in, trying to peer into the darkness, but they see nothing, or rather, they see nothing of what they expected. There is no glimpse of a chamber beyond, no hint of golden treasures. The view through the hole is one of solid, tightly packed darkness. Carter takes an iron testing rod and pushes it through the opening. It meets firm resistance. He pushes harder, and it penetrates only a short distance before stopping dead. He tries again at a different angle, with the same result. A wave of confusion, and perhaps a touch of dread, washes over the small group. Carter announces his finding, his voice flat and factual. The doorway does not lead into a chamber. It leads into a passageway, one that has been deliberately and completely filled from floor to ceiling with limestone chippings and rubble. They have breached the ancient seal only to find a solid wall of rock. Historians still debate the primary function of this rubble fill, whether it was a purely physical deterrent for thieves, or if it held a deeper, symbolic meaning, representing the chaotic earth through which the deceased king must navigate on his journey to rebirth. For the team, however, it is a new, back-breaking obstacle, a mountain of stone standing between them and the truth. The work of clearing the corridor begins. It is a slow, grueling, and profoundly discouraging task. You are in a narrow, downward-sloping passage, barely wide enough for two men to pass each other. The air is stale and thick with dust, raised by the constant digging. The only light comes from the entrance, a bright rectangle that seems to grow smaller and more distant with every foot of progress they make. The process is painfully simple. Men at the rock face hack away at the compacted chippings with picks, while others shovel the loosened rubble into baskets, which are then passed hand to hand up the corridor and out into the blinding sunlight of the valley. It is a human conveyor belt, powered by sweat and muscle. Days turn into a week, and then more. The initial thrill of breaching the first door has long since evaporated, replaced by the familiar, aching monotony of hard labor. You can feel the claustrophobia of the space, the immense weight of the mountain above you. The limestone chippings are not loose sand. They are packed as hard as concrete, a deliberate and formidable barrier. With every basket of rock that is removed, the question hangs heavier in the air. Why go to such lengths? Was it to protect a treasure of unimaginable value, or was it a desperate, final attempt to secure a tomb that had already been violated? Finally, after clearing nearly 30 feet of the passageway, the workers at the front call out. Their shovels have hit a flat surface. It is another door. A second plastered wall, identical to the first, blocks their path. A wave of relief and renewed excitement washes through the team. This must be it. The entrance to the burial chambers themselves. As the last of the rubble is cleared away, the entire surface of the second door is revealed. Carter moves forward with a lantern, its flickering light casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. He inspects the surface, and a deep, profound silence falls over the group. The seals are there, just as on the first door, but something is terribly wrong. You can see it clearly in the raking light of the lantern. Near the bottom corner of the doorway is a dark, irregular patch. The plaster is a different color, a different texture. It is a patch, a repair, and worse. When Carter examines the seals, his face grows grim. While most are the official necropolis seals of the Jackal and 9 captives, there are other, more personal seals bearing Tutankhamun's own name. The official seals are stamped cleanly over the edges of the patched-up hole. The meaning is terrifyingly clear. Someone broke into this tomb long ago. They hacked a hole through this very door. Afterwards, necropolis officials came, assessed the damage, tidied up, and resealed the entrance, stamping their own seals over the patch to make it official. The tomb has been robbed. A cold dread replaces the excitement. Tomb robbing was an endemic problem in ancient Egypt, a trade passed down through generations. The men who plundered these sacred places knew exactly what they were looking for. Not just gold, but precious linens, perfumes, and exotic oils which were worth a fortune. Historians still debate how many times Tutankhamun's tomb was robbed, with evidence suggesting at least 2 separate breaches occurred shortly after his burial. Standing there in the dark, dusty corridor, all Carter and Carnarvon know is that they are not the first to stand before this door. Their monumental discovery, the intact royal tomb, the dream of a lifetime, now seems to be nothing more than a cruel joke, a grand and empty stage where the real drama happened 30 centuries ago. They have come all this way, only to find the empty shell of a plundered tomb. The air in the narrow passageway becomes thick and suffocating, not with dust, but with the crushing weight of disappointment. You feel it as a physical presence. The dream is dead. Carnarvon, the man who had gambled a fortune on this patch of dirt, stands motionless, his face a stoic mask that barely conceals his profound dejection. Lady Evelyn looks to her father, then to Carter, her youthful optimism finally extinguished. All this way, all this work, all this hope, just to confirm that they were 3,000 years too late. They are no longer discoverers, they are simply the latest in a long line of visitors, the last of whom were thieves. But Carter is a man of procedure. His obsession has been tempered by decades of scientific discipline. An empty tomb must still be documented. A plundered tomb might still contain fragments, clues for the historian. The work must go on, even if the joy is gone. He cannot simply turn around and walk away. He owes it to his patron, to his profession, and to the sliver of his own soul that still refuses to surrender completely. He turns to face the patched door, his expression grim. He must see what the robbers left behind. He selects a spot on the upper left-hand corner of the doorway, away from the ancient patch. He wants to see into the original, undisturbed portion of the chamber first. He takes a small chisel and a mallet. The sound of the sharp taps against the plaster is small and hollow, a funereal rhythm in the dead air. No one speaks. The only other sound is the soft hiss of the lantern. A small pile of white powder gathers on the floor as he works with meticulous, joyless precision. He is not breaking down a barrier to a king's treasure. He is performing an autopsy. Finally, a small hole is made, scarcely larger than a coin. He widens it carefully until it is big enough to peer through. Darkness, utter and complete blackness. As before, he calls for a candle. He needs to test the air, but this time it feels more like a ritual, a final, empty piece of ceremony. He passes the candle through the opening. The flame elongates, dancing wildly in the draft of warm air escaping from the chamber. A draft that has been trapped for millennia. The light of the candle flickers, and for a moment you think it will go out, but it holds, its small flame pushing back against the immense, ancient dark. Carter leans forward, placing his face against the cool stone, blocking the view from everyone else. He is utterly silent. You watch his back, the tense line of his shoulders, waiting for the verdict. An eternity seems to pass in that narrow corridor. The silence stretches, becoming unbearable. He says nothing. Lord Carnarvon, unable to stand the suspense any longer, finally breaks the silence. his voice strained. "Can you see anything?" Another moment of silence follows, and you realize Carter is so overwhelmed he cannot speak. When his voice finally comes, it is a choked, trembling whisper, filled with a sense of awe, so profound it is almost painful. "Yes," he says, struggling to find the words. "Wonderful things." Historians still debate the exact nature of the objects Carter first saw, as his initial glimpse could only have taken in a fraction of the room's chaotic splendor. But in that moment, with those 3 simple words, the despair shatters. The dead dream is resurrected, more glorious and real than anyone had dared to imagine. The tomb was not empty. The robbers had not taken everything. Something miraculous, something impossible, lay waiting in the darkness. Those 3 words, wonderful things, hang in the air, instantly changing the very molecules of the cramped passageway. Disappointment evaporates, replaced by an intoxicating, almost unbearable suspense. Carter pulls back from the hole, his eyes wide with an emotion you cannot quite decipher, a mixture of shock, awe, and triumphant disbelief. Lord Carnarvon and Lady Evelyn surge forward, jostling for a look through the tiny aperture. You press in behind them, catching your own first glimpse into the chamber. It is like looking through a keyhole into another universe. The candlelight from within is small and feeble, dancing and flickering, only illuminating small details at a time. Your eyes struggle to adjust to the gloom, and what you see makes no sense at first. It is not a room. It is a jumble of shapes and shadows. You see the glint of gold, so much gold that it seems to be a solid wall. Then, a strange shape resolves itself in the wavering light, the sinuous curve of a golden serpent, the stylized head of a fantastical beast. You see dark, polished wood, the pale gleam of alabaster, and the intricate patterns of inlaid, semi-precious stones. It is a chaotic, impossible scene, a dragon's hoard from a fairy tale. The tiny hole is no longer enough. The suspense is too great. Carter, with a renewed, almost manic energy, begins to widen the opening, pulling down chunks of plaster and stone with his bare hands, heedless of the dust and debris. The others help, their aristocratic composure forgotten in a shared, feverish need to see. They work until the opening is large enough for a person to squeeze through. Carter, lantern held high, is the first to enter, followed by Carnarvon, then Lady Evelyn. You slip in behind them, crossing a threshold that has been sealed for 32 centuries. You are standing in the antechamber. The air is still and warm, carrying the faint, dry scent of wood, oils, and time itself. And before you is a scene of such breathtaking, chaotic splendor that your mind struggles to process it. It is not a grand, orderly chamber. It is a celestial storage unit, a divine and golden chaos. Objects are piled everywhere, stacked one on top of the other, crammed into every available space. To your right, you see the dismantled pieces of several golden chariots, their wheels and axles leaning against walls adorned with intricate carvings. Straight ahead, dominating the room, are 3 enormous gilded couches. Their legs are carved into the forms of fantastic animals: 2 fearsome lions with bared teeth, 2 serene cows with lyre-shaped horns, and a third, bizarre creation with the body of a hippopotamus and the head of a crocodile. Leaning against one of the couches is the most beautiful object you have ever seen. A golden throne, its back panel a stunning depiction of the young king and his queen and cinnamon. Everywhere you look, there is more. White alabaster vases so delicate they seem to glow from within. Intricate inlaid boxes, a strange, life-sized mannequin of the king's torso, probably used as a stand for his robes and jewelry. Historians still debate the cause of this magnificent disarray. Was it the result of a hurried burial by priests struggling to fit an entire palace worth of goods into a small tomb? Or was it the work of those ancient robbers who frantically rummaged through the room, tossing aside the large, heavy items in their search for smaller, more portable treasures? like precious metals and linen. As you stand there, frozen in awe, you look at Howard Carter. His face is streaked with dust and sweat, and tears are silently tracing paths down his weathered cheeks. It is the look of a man who hunted a ghost for his entire life, and in the end, found a god. After the initial, blinding shock of the gold subsides, a new feeling begins to settle in your mind. It is a profound sense of bewilderment. You are standing in what is essentially a king's eternal bedroom, and it looks less like a sacred chamber and more like the most opulent, overstuffed attic in human history. Your modern sensibilities are confused. Why would a soul, on its journey to a spiritual afterlife, need a dismantled chariot, or a stool to sit on, or 6 dozen loincloths? You look at a small, intricately carved white box, and you can almost imagine the Pharaoh's servants arguing about where to put it, finally just shoving it under one of the animal-headed couches. It's divine clutter. You have to completely readjust your understanding of death to make sense of this scene. For the ancient Egyptians, the afterlife was not some ethereal, cloudy heaven where spirits floated around playing harps. It was a physical place, a literal continuation of earthly existence, just better. They called it the Field of Reeds, a perfect, idealized version of the Nile Valley, where the sun always shone and the crops always grew. But to get there, and to live there, you needed all of your stuff. Everything you enjoyed in this life, you would need in the next. It was the most important trip you would ever take, and you had to pack accordingly. This is the psychology that fills this room. It is a profound and powerful denial of death's finality. Every object here is a statement, an insistence that life will go on. You see a beautiful, painted chest, and you realize it once held the king's fine linen robes. He would need those. You see a collection of elegant walking sticks, over 100 of them, many exquisitely carved from ebony and ivory. This is a famous curiosity of the tomb, as scientific examination of Tutankhamun's mummy would later reveal he had a club foot and likely needed a cane to walk. He would definitely need those on the long journey through the underworld. You even see sealed containers that once held preserved foods, cuts of meat and fowl, a pantry for a dead king. It's like packing a celestial lunchbox. Historians still debate whether all these objects were items Tutankhamun genuinely used and loved during his short life, or if many were created specifically for the tomb, pristine and unused, as a sort of starter kit for his new life in the Field of Reeds. Either way, the intent is the same. The pharaoh could not arrive in the afterlife empty-handed. That would be like a modern celebrity showing up at the Oscars in sweatpants. It was a matter of status, of comfort, and of continuing to be who he was, a king. This tomb is not a memorial, it is a moving van. It is a perfectly preserved, 3,000-year-old snapshot of a belief system that treated death as nothing more than a change of address. As you look around at the golden chaos, the jumble of thrones, beds, boxes, and chariots, you understand that you are not just seeing treasure, you are seeing a desperate, beautiful, and profoundly human attempt to conquer the great unknown by simply packing for it. As your eyes slowly adjust and begin to make sense of the magnificent chaos of the antechamber, you notice something. On the north wall, the wall directly opposite the entrance you came through, the jumble of objects is not quite as random. It seems more deliberately arranged. Pushed up against this wall are the 2 largest and most imposing of the 3 funerary couches, the one with the lion heads and the one with the heads of the cow goddess. And standing between them, as if emerging from the shadows they cast, are 2 figures. You take a step closer, your heart giving a sudden, sharp jolt. They are statues, 2 life-sized statues of King Tutankhamun himself, facing each other in a silent, eternal standoff. They are carved from wood, which has been coated in a thick layer of gleaming black resin that seems to drink the light from your lantern. Their details, however, are picked out in brilliant gold. They wear golden kilts, golden sandals, and golden headdresses. The effect is breathtaking and deeply unsettling. Their eyes, inlaid with obsidian and alabaster, seem to follow you as you move. They are not just decorations, they are guardians. They are sentinels, posted at a threshold, and their presence transforms the entire feeling of the room. This is no longer just a storeroom, it is a guarded space. You notice they are not identical. The statue on the left wears a Nena's headcloth, the classic striped pharaonic headdress you see in most depictions. The statue on the right, however, wears a different, bag-like headdress known as an afnet. It's a subtle but significant difference in royal regalia. Each statue holds a staff and a mace, symbols of royal authority, their golden tips gleaming in the dim light. They are perfect, youthful, idealized images of the king in his prime, radiating an aura of calm, divine power. Their black skin is not meant to be a realistic depiction. It is symbolic. It represents the rich, fertile silt of the Nile, the source of all life in Egypt, and it is the color of Osiris, the god of the underworld and resurrection. These statues are not just the king, they are the king reborn, imbued with the power of creation and eternal life. And then you see what they are guarding. Between them, the wall is not like the other walls of the tomb, which are rough and undecorated rock. This section of the wall is plastered over and painted white, exactly like the two doorways you have already come through. And if you look closely, you can see the faint impressions of the same necropolis seals. The jackal and the 9 captives stamped repeatedly over the surface. A cold thrill runs down your spine. This is it. The antechamber, for all its golden wonders, is just the foyer. The real tomb, the burial chamber itself, lies beyond this wall. Historians still debate the precise ritualistic purpose of these 2 guardian statues, known as Ka statues. They were likely meant to house the king's Ka, or life force, and to magically protect the sealed entrance to his sarcophagus chamber from any spiritual or physical intruder. For you, standing in the flickering lamplight, their purpose is perfectly, chillingly clear. They are staring at you, warning you, daring you to disturb the sacred sleep of their master. The greatest treasure of all, the king's own body, is just a few feet away, protected by a thin wall of plaster and the silent, golden gaze of his eternal self. The 2 black and gold guardians hold you in their silent, unblinking gaze. For weeks, you and the team have been carefully cataloguing and clearing the antechamber, a task of immense complexity. Each object, from a golden throne to a simple reed basket, must be photographed, documented, and painstakingly preserved before being moved. But all the while, this sealed wall has been the true focus of your thoughts, a constant, nagging promise of the ultimate secret. Now, the day has come to breach it. The antechamber is clear enough to allow access. The moment is heavy with a reverence that borders on fear. You are no longer in the king's living quarters. You are about to knock on his bedroom door. Carter stands before the wall, a small team of his most trusted men beside him. Carnarvon and Lady Evelyn are there, their faces pale with anticipation in the low, electric light that has now been run into the tomb. You can see on the wall the dark, resealed patch of the ancient robber's hole, a silent testament to a crime committed 30 centuries ago. Did they get through? Did they see what you are about to see? The suspense is almost a physical pain. Carter chooses to make his opening in a new spot in the upper corner, wanting his first view to be one that has not been seen by any eyes since the priests laid the final block of plaster. He raises a heavy chisel, and the sound of the first blow against the wall is like a gunshot in the sacred silence. It echoes off the stone walls, a shocking act of violation. The men work with a slow, deliberate rhythm, chipping away at the plaster and the stone blocks behind it. The process is agonizingly slow. It is not a demolition. It is a careful, archaeological disassembly. With each block that is removed, the tension ratchets higher. Dust, carrying the scent of millennia, fills the air. Finally, the hole is large enough for Carter to peer through. He holds up an electric torch. Its powerful, steady beam a stark contrast to the flickering candle he used before. He shines it into the darkness. A collective, sharp intake of breath is the only sound you hear. The beam of light does not penetrate into a deep space. It does not reveal another chamber full of scattered objects. Instead, the light simply stops. It hits a solid, vertical surface only a few inches from the opening. A surface that seems to swallow the light and throw it back as a brilliant, blinding glare. It is a wall, a solid wall of gold. It makes no sense. The light pans across the surface, and all you can see is an unending expanse of shimmering dark blue and gold. There are no features, no breaks, just a massive, flat plain of unimaginable wealth. The men frantically work to widen the opening, their careful reverence replaced by a desperate need to understand what they are seeing. As the hole grows larger, the truth slowly reveals itself. This is not a wall. It is the side of an enormous, gilded shrine, so vast that it almost completely fills the burial chamber, leaving only a narrow corridor around its edges. It is a building within a room, a golden house for the dead. Historians still debate the efficiency of the ancient thieves, wondering if they breached this wall, saw this monolithic obstacle, and simply gave up, unable to imagine a way to get past it. As the last stone is pulled away, you stand before the opened threshold, gazing into the burial chamber. The air that flows out is cool and still, and it carries no scent at all. You are staring at a solid mountain of gold, decorated with brilliant blue faience inlays of sacred symbols that protect the king who sleeps somewhere within. You step across the threshold into the burial chamber. The space is surprisingly small, and almost entirely consumed by the colossal golden box you saw through the opening. You are in a narrow corridor, less than a yard wide, that runs between the rough, undecorated walls of the chamber and the impossibly ornate sides of the shrine. The air is cool and profoundly still. The only sound is the soft scuff of your own feet on the stone floor. The shrine towers over you, its roof almost touching the ceiling. Its doors, on the eastern side, are closed and secured with a simple but intact rope seal. You are looking at a lock that has not been touched for over 3,000 years. Carter, with hands that you notice are trembling slightly, carefully cuts the ancient rope. The men gently pulled the great golden doors open. They swing outward on their bronze hinges without a sound, revealing not the king's coffin, but another, almost identical set of doors, also sealed. You are not looking at a single box. You are looking at a set of Russian nesting dolls, built on a divine and monumental scale. Inside this first shrine is a second shrine. The process of dismantling the first outermost shrine begins. It is a masterpiece of ancient engineering and artistry. Constructed from thick panels of oak and cedar, it is covered from top to bottom in sheets of gleaming gold. Its surface is decorated with intricate carvings and inlaid with brilliant blue faience tiles, forming sacred symbols like the Jed pillar, representing stability, and the Tayat, the knot of Isis, representing protection. It is a structure of overwhelming beauty and immense weight. The team must carefully record every detail, every joint and peg, before taking it apart piece by piece, passing the massive, heavy sections out of the burial chamber, through the antechamber, and into the light. Once the first shrine is gone, the second shrine is revealed in its entirety. It is slightly smaller, but even more magnificent. Its surface is covered with a delicate linen pall, now dark and fragile with age, dotted with hundreds of small, gilded bronze rosettes that glitter like a field. When this fragile textile is carefully removed, it reveals the shrine beneath is decorated with incredibly detailed magical texts and depictions of underworld deities. This is a visual instruction manual for the king's journey through the afterlife. You are reading his sacred map. The doors of this second shrine are opened, and inside, as you have come to expect, is a third shrine. The process is repeated. The second shrine is painstakingly documented and disassembled. The third shrine is revealed to be just as beautiful as the others. Its golden surfaces alive with the figures of gods and goddesses, their arms outstretched in gestures of protection. Its doors are opened, and inside, at last, is the fourth and final shrine. This one is the most spectacular of all. Its form is different, with a gracefully curved roof, and its entire surface is covered in detailed, almost narrative carvings of the king's journey to meet Osiris in the underworld. It is a story told in gold. The doors of this final shrine are opened. The air grows heavy with anticipation. There are no more boxes. Inside, filling the entire space, is a single, colossal object. It is a sarcophagus, carved from a single, massive block of yellow quartzite. So monumental it seems impossible that it could have been brought into this small room. It is a stone mountain, and sleeping inside it is the Boy King. Historians still debate the precise logistical feat of assembling these four nested shrines within the confines of the burial chamber. A puzzle of ancient construction that remains a marvel of planning and execution. You stand before the quartzite sarcophagus. It is a monolith, a solid block of sun-colored stone that seems to radiate a deep, ancient calm. Its sheer size and weight are humbling. Carved at each of its four corners are the protective figures of goddesses Isis, Nephthys, Neith, and Sulkit, their arms outstretched, their painted and gilded wings wrapped around the sarcophagus in a gesture of eternal embrace. They are the divine guardians of this final, sacred vessel. The lid alone, a single slab of granite that doesn't quite match the color of the base, is estimated to weigh well over a ton. For the first time in this entire journey, you are confronted with a purely physical, mechanical challenge. How do you lift something so immense in such a confined space? The team devises a system of heavy-duty ropes and pulleys, creating a complex rig attached to the ceiling of the burial chamber. The work is slow, nerve-wracking, and physically demanding. The men strain at the ropes, their muscles bunched, their faces grim with concentration. You can hear the creak of the timbers and the groan of the ropes under the immense strain. Every inch the lid rises is a victory. The air is thick with the dust of ages and the sweat of modern men. There is a palpable fear that the ancient stone might crack, or that the rigging might fail, sending the lid crashing down to shatter whatever lies within. Slowly, painstakingly, the lid is raised high enough for the team to look inside. The interior of the sarcophagus is dark, a rectangle of pure blackness. Carter shines a powerful electric lamp into the void, and a collective gasp echoes in the small chamber. It is filled to the brim with something dark and lit and wrapped. But as the light hits it, you see the unmistakable glint of gold peeking through. With the lid safely suspended, the team begins the delicate task of clearing away the layers of ancient linen shrouds that cover the contents. The fabric, once fine and white, is now brown and brittle, crumbling to the touch. As the last of the shrouds is peeled back, the full splendor of what lies within is revealed. It is a coffin, but it is unlike any coffin you have ever imagined. It is a breathtaking, human-shaped sarcophagus, crafted from wood and covered entirely in a layer of thick, burnished gold. It depicts the king as the god Osiris, his arms crossed over his chest, his hands clutching the symbolic crook and flail, emblems of kingship. His face is serene and perfect, his eyes inlaid with aragonite and obsidian stare up into eternity. His brow is protected by the divine cobra and vulture, symbols of Upper and Lower Egypt. It is an object of such overwhelming beauty and power that it silences everyone in the room. But this is not the end. As the team carefully prepares to lift this magnificent golden coffin out of the stone sarcophagus, they discover it is only the first. It is nestled perfectly within a second, slightly larger coffin, also anthropoid in shape and covered in gold leaf, but this time intricately inlaid with a feather pattern of colored glass and semi-precious stones. It is another layer of the sacred onion, and when they finally manage to separate these two, they find a third coffin nested inside the second. They have opened a sarcophagus only to find 3 more, each one a masterpiece, each one bringing them a step closer to the king himself. Historians still debate the symbolic meaning of these nested coffins, seeing them not just as physical protection, but as layers of ritual transformation, magically turning the deceased pharaoh into a divine being. The journey is not over. The greatest secret is still locked away inside that final golden shell. You are now in a laboratory that has been set up in the nearby empty tomb of Seti II. The air here is different, no longer thick with the dust of discovery, but sharp with the scent of chemicals and preservation agents. The 2 outer gilded coffins have been carefully transported here, but the third and final coffin remains in the stone sarcophagus back in the burial chamber. It is simply too heavy and too precious to move easily. This final coffin is the one that has captured the world's imagination, for it is not gilded wood. It is solid, cast gold. It weighs nearly 250 pounds, a staggering fortune in raw metal alone, let alone its incalculable artistic and historical value. The lid of this final, solid gold coffin is held in place by a series of tiny golden rivets. Carter and his conservators must now perform what feels like a final, delicate surgery. The excitement of the initial discovery has been replaced by a deep, scientific reverence and a profound sense of responsibility. They work with tiny drills and pliers, carefully removing each rivet, their movements precise and unhurried. The silence in the burial chamber is absolute, broken only by the tiny, metallic click of their tools. Everyone present knows they are about to witness something no human has seen since the priests of the 18th dynasty performed their final rites. With the last rivet removed, Carter and another man position themselves on either side of the coffin. They take hold of the handles on the lid. For a moment, they pause, sharing a look that acknowledges the immense gravity of the moment. Then, with a slow, coordinated effort, they begin to lift. The lid rises smoothly, revealing the darkness within. A strange, slightly acrid smell, the scent of ancient resins and perfumes, wafts up from the interior, a final, ghostly exhalation from the past. Carter leans over, shining a light inside, and there, nestled within the golden shell, is the king. He is wrapped in layers of fine linen bandages, now blackened and hardened by the anointing oils that were poured over his body during the funeral ceremony. The resins have solidified over the millennia, effectively gluing the mummy to the bottom of the coffin and to the object that covers his head and shoulders. And it is this object that takes your breath away. It is the face, the serene, perfect, impossibly famous golden face of the boy king. You are looking at the death mask of Tutankhamun. It is even more beautiful, more powerful than any photograph could ever convey. It is crafted from beaten gold, inlaid with lapis lazuli, quartz, and obsidian. The stripes of the Nena's headdress, the lines of the divine beard, the delicate curve of the cosmetic lines around the eyes, all are rendered with a breathtaking artistry. It is not just a portrait, it is an idealized image of divinity, a face designed to be eternal. The cobra and vulture on his brow stare forward with a fierce, protective energy. His expression is one of calm, untroubled peace, a look of serene confidence as he journeys into the afterlife. Historians still debate the precise origin of the mask, with some theories suggesting its facial features are so feminine that it may have originally been crafted for a female pharaoh, possibly Nefertiti, and was later repurposed for Tutankhamun's unexpectedly early death. But as you gaze upon it, such academic questions fade away. You are simply face to face with an icon, a single object that has come to symbolize the entire dazzling civilization of ancient Egypt. You are looking at eternity, and it is staring back at you, while the slow, meticulous work of science continues inside the tomb. A very different story is beginning to unfold in the world outside. The discovery is no longer a secret whispered among archaeologists in Luxor. it is a global sensation. Newspapers from London to New York are running banner headlines, their stories filled with breathless descriptions of gold, treasure, and the magic of a lost world. The public is utterly captivated. You can feel the shift from a scientific expedition to a full-blown media spectacle. Tourists are flooding into Luxor, all hoping for a glimpse of the famous tomb or the even more famous Lord Carnarvon. It is in this superheated atmosphere of public fascination that the whisper begins. It starts subtly. A quiet rumor passed between local Egyptians. A story told to credulous tourists for a bit of extra money. The ancient pharaohs, the story goes, did not like to be disturbed. They protected their eternal rest with powerful magic, with curses that would bring ruin and death to any who dared to violate their tombs. It is an old story, a piece of folklore that has existed for centuries. But in the feverish excitement surrounding Tutankhamun, it finds fertile ground. Then, in the spring of 1923, just a few months after the burial chamber was opened, the whisper becomes a roar. Lord Carnarvon, the handsome, wealthy, and now world-famous patron of the discovery, falls ill in his Cairo hotel. It begins with a fever, chills, and fatigue. Doctors are baffled at first. The cause is eventually traced to a seemingly insignificant event. While shaving, Carnarvon had accidentally nicked a mosquito bite on his cheek. The wound became infected, and the infection spread, leading to blood poisoning and eventually pneumonia. On April 5th, he dies. He is only 56 years old. The moment of his death is shrouded in an almost supernatural coincidence. His son would later recount that at the very instant his father passed away in Cairo, all the lights in the city inexplicably went out for several minutes. At the same time, back at Carnarvon's estate in England, his beloved fox terrier, Susie, is said to have let out a single, mournful howl and dropped dead. The story is almost certainly an embellishment, a piece of family lore polished for dramatic effect, but in the hands of the world's press, it is pure gold. The news of Carnarvon's death, coupled with these strange events, ignites a firestorm of speculation. The curse of the pharaohs is no longer a piece of folklore, it is a headline. Newspapers report that an inscription was found in the tomb, supposedly reading, "Death shall come on swift wings to him that toucheth the tomb of the pharaoh." No such inscription was ever found, but that hardly matters. The legend is born. One by one, any subsequent death, even tangentially related to the tomb, is attributed to the curse. A radiologist who x-rayed the mummy dies a year later of an illness. A wealthy American visitor to the tomb dies of pneumonia shortly after his trip. The list grows, each death adding another layer of myth and supernatural dread to the story. Historians and scientists have thoroughly debunked the curse, pointing out that Howard Carter, the man who spent more time in the tomb than anyone, lived for another 16 years, dying at the age of 64. Still, the idea of a vengeful boy king lashing out from beyond the grave is a far more compelling story than the sad, mundane truth of an infected mosquito bite. The treasure of Tutankhamun is no longer just gold and artifacts. It now includes a ghost story for the entire world. While the world outside is consumed with tales of ancient curses and supernatural vengeance, a very different kind of drama is unfolding within the Valley of the Kings. The discovery of the tomb was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a monumental task. The initial, thrilling phase of exploration is over. Now begins the slow, patient, and often tedious work of conservation. You are part of a team faced with a challenge unprecedented in the history of archaeology. It is not enough to simply remove the objects. You must ensure they survive their sudden re-entry into the world of air and light. You are witnessing the birth of modern archaeological conservation, forged in the heat and dust of this very tomb. Carter and his team, which includes brilliant specialists like chemist Alfred Lucas and photographer Harry Burton, are writing the rulebook as they go. Every single object, of which there are over 5,000, presents its own unique set of problems. A beautiful pair of beaded sandals, when lifted, crumbles into a pile of dust and loose beads because the ancient thread has disintegrated. A magnificent painted chest, appearing solid, has wood that has been so weakened over the millennia that it has the consistency of wet cardboard and cannot support its own weight. You watch as the team improvises ingenious solutions. They flood delicate objects with molten paraffin wax to stabilize them before they can be moved. They use medical bandages to wrap and support fragile wooden furniture. It is a painstaking, high-stakes process. A single mistake, a moment of clumsiness, could destroy a priceless, irreplaceable piece of human history. The tomb of Seti II is transformed into a state-of-the-art laboratory and photo studio. Every object, no matter how small, is meticulously cleaned, treated, photographed from multiple angles against a stark white background, and assigned a unique reference number. Harry Burton's stunning black and white photographs, with their dramatic lighting and sense of sterile order, become the official record of the discovery. Images that are now as iconic as the artifacts themselves. This process takes not months, but years. A full decade will pass from the day the first step was uncovered until the last of the 5,398 artifacts is safely removed from the tomb and transported to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. The work is relentless, and it takes place against a backdrop of growing political tension. The discovery has ignited a powerful sense of national pride in Egypt, and there is a growing resentment of the fact that this great national treasure is being controlled by a team of British archaeologists. There are legal battles over ownership and access, adding a layer of bureaucratic and political stress to Carter's already immense scientific burden. Historians still debate the fairness of Carter's famously controlling and secretive nature during this period. Was he a perfectionist, rightly protecting the integrity of his find, or a colonial-era autocrat refusing to share the glory with the Egyptian authorities whose heritage it was? Whatever the case, the work continues, day in and day out. A slow, methodical rescue mission that spans a decade. The story of the discovery is one of breathless moments, but the story of its preservation is one of 10 long, patient years. After years of painstaking work cataloging the thousands of artifacts, after the world has been dazzled by the gold and whispered about the curse, the time finally comes to focus on the last and most important object in the tomb. The king himself. You are in the small laboratory, the air quiet and clinical. The solid gold coffin has been opened. The magnificent death mask has been carefully removed. And now, for the first time, the royal mummy of Tutankhamun is ready to be examined. The linen wrappings, blackened and hardened by 3 millennia of solidified anointing oils, are a formidable barrier. They have become a hard, brittle carapace, more like resin than fabric. The delicate task of unwrapping the mummy is led by Dr. Douglas Derry, a professor of anatomy from Cairo. It is a slow, layer-by-layer process of reverse archaeology. As each layer of bandage is carefully cut away and peeled back, it reveals a breathtaking treasure trove. The ancient embalmers had placed 143 separate amulets, jewels, and daggers within the wrappings, each one a magical charm to protect the king on his journey. There are golden collars, bracelets of lapis lazuli, rings, and a series of golden bands inscribed with sacred texts wrapped around the body. It is a suit of divine, magical armor. Each item's position is meticulously recorded before it is removed. As the last of the wrappings are removed from the torso and limbs, a different story begins to emerge. A story that is not about divine kingship, but about human frailty. The body beneath the gold is that of a young man, almost a boy. He is small and slight of build. His skeleton reveals a number of physical ailments. You see the evidence of his famous clubfoot, a severe deformity of his left foot that would have forced him to walk with a cane, which explains the hundreds of walking sticks found in the antechamber. He also has a slight cleft palate and a curved spine. This is not the powerful, chariot-riding pharaoh depicted in the tomb's artwork. This is a frail, physically challenged young man. For decades, the cause of his death, around the age of 19, remained a mystery, fueling all sorts of dramatic theories, from assassination by a blow to the head to a fatal chariot crash. But more recent scientific analyses, including CT scans and DNA testing, have painted a clearer, and perhaps sadder, picture. The famous hole in his skull was not from a murderous blow, but was made by the embalmers during the mummification process. The scans did, however, reveal a severe, compound fracture in his left leg, just above the knee. It appears the young king suffered a very bad break shortly before he died. Historians now largely agree that his death was likely the result of an infection that set in from this broken leg, a complication made far more dangerous by his already weakened state. DNA evidence suggests he also suffered from multiple bouts of malaria, the most severe strain of the disease, which would have compromised his immune system. So, the great mystery of the boy king's death seems to have a mundane, tragic answer. He was not murdered or cursed. He was a physically fragile young man, inbred from a long line of pharaohs, who likely succumbed to a fatal infection after a simple accident. The gold and the glory concealed the very human story of a boy who never had a chance to grow into an old man. And so, the story of the discovery comes to a close. You are left with the quiet, frail body of a boy king, and the dazzling, overwhelming legacy of his golden afterlife. The final irony, the one that echoes through the silent halls of history, is that Tutankhamun was never supposed to be remembered. In the grand, sweeping saga of ancient Egypt, he was a minor character, a footnote. His reign was short, lasting only about a decade. His primary achievement was to reverse the chaotic religious revolution of his father, Akhenaten, and restore the old gods to their rightful place. It was an important act, but not the stuff of legend. After his death, his successors, particularly the powerful Horemheb, made a concerted effort to erase him, and the entire Amarna period, from history. They chiseled his name from monuments, and omitted him from the official lists of kings. Their goal was to make him drift away into oblivion, and they almost succeeded. For 3,000 years, he was forgotten. His fame, the global superstardom he enjoys today, is a complete accident of history. He is not famous for the battles he won, the temples he built, or the wisdom of his rule. He is famous for one reason, and one reason only, the reason you have just witnessed. His tomb, small and insignificant compared to the great caverns carved for pharaohs like Ramesses the Great, was hidden by the rubble from a later tomb's construction. It was buried, lost, and therefore it survived. His fame is a product of what was found, not what he did. The discovery transformed him from a forgotten pharaoh